Well, it seems that Peeping Thomas has a friend. As we discussed on the takedown with Cliff Schechter the other day, when going through these insane Supreme Court decisions, ahistorical and attacks on our basic legal framework, our constitutional understanding, everything that this illegally appointed, let's say, Supreme Court with stolen seats and minority vote-winning presidents and two potential, at least alleged and believable sexual abusers in the court. We'll start with one of those. Clarence Thomas, they of course have taken it upon themselves to decide what ladies can do with their lady parts. Those two guys who apparently in the past were just trying to decide what ladies could do with their lady parts without giving ladies the option also. Clarence Thomas came out and said what the other Supreme Court right-wing nuts were trying to keep quiet, which is, well, if we're going to talk about Roe versus Wade, we should then move on to Griswold. Griswold is the case that set the precedent for Roe versus Wade that gave women the right to privacy and birth control. Yes, Clarence Thomas wants to come for your birth control. But also he mentioned obergefell, which is the case that allowed gay marriage, came from here in Ohio. And he went even further to talk about Lawrence versus Texas, as if we're not still in some 15th century feudal hellhole. Now, what did Lawrence versus Texas do? Lawrence versus Texas overturned the Bowers case. That was the one where they could actually ban you from having what they call sodomy. Now, they mean it mostly in terms of gay sex, but that's not what sodomy just is. Sodomy has a broader definition. It is I'll just give you the dirty goods here, any copulation that takes place that is not a man in a woman's vagina, as in anal and oral. And you know what? That includes straight couples. So if you think they're just talking about gay couples here, sure, that's who they'd like to persecute. But conveniently, they can use it on others. Now, so Thomas was alone. Brett Kavanaugh tried to back off that, I guess, bad memories of his own past of at least believable and credible accusations of sexual assault, as did a few others. But Thomas, was very steadfast in this. He's been joined now by literally a man who looks like a lawnmower ran over his face and just, atrocious imbecile, the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, and another one of these people that only Republicans could elect, especially statewide, this jackass. So Ken Paxton, just so you know, has been under indictment since 2015. Let's make sure we get it exactly right. Under indictment on state securities fraud charges relating to activities prior to his taking office. He's pleaded not guilty. In October of 2020, just so you know, he continues to be a scumbag. Several high-level assistants in Paxton's office, these were Republican assistants, accused him of, quote, bribery, abuse of office, and other crimes. So we have this guy who was indicted for securities fraud. We have a guy who's been accused by high-level officials in his office of bribery and abuse of office. I don't know why it seems to take Republicans who get indicted so long to have anything happen to them. Andrew Gillum, they indict him and within a year, we're going to prison. But this guy, who has multiple crimes, state and federal, that he's been charged with, indicted on one, he's still the highest legal official in Texas, the highest lawyer in Texas. The fact that he didn't have to step down the minute he was indicted just tells you how Republicans control Texas with an iron fist and for brains. So what do we get? We've got Paxton now joining Thomas and saying, well, we're going to have to revisit Lawrence versus Texas, because Paxton also will do anything to try and misdirect attention away from the fact that he's a scumbag being investigated for multiple crimes. Clarence Thomas is somebody who, of course, wants to judge everybody else's sexuality, even though his marriage to his wife from Nebraska, who is white, would have been illegal 15 years beforehand if the very same 14th Amendment that made it so that we could have privacy and choice also made it so that Loving versus Virginia could be passed, and that he could marry a white woman. Of course, he didn't mention that one. That's funny how that happens. Also, he, of course, is divorced. Well, sodomy, I don't know. There are definitions of sodomy that include sex outside of marriage. What was he doing? When did he and Ginny start, doing the rump? Oh, God, I shouldn't have said that. But, when did he start stepping out in the lady? He got married, I think, in 71, divorced in 74, had a child. Also, by the way, these sexual scolds, Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, Clarence Thomas, every single one of them has been divorced. Ronald Reagan was divorced, by the way, too. Bob Dole was divorced, if we want to go back to previous Republicans. But, like, they'll all judge your life. They'll all tell, I mean, they're coming for that next. I promise you, they'll tell you when you can get divorced. They try to do that in some states anyhow. They're all divorced because for them, they can do what they want. Mitch McConnell can marry an Asian woman based upon Loving versus Virginia, but like we can roll back the right of gay couples to get married. So how does this all sum up? We should beat the living ass out of these guys. Yeah, I know I don't want to curse too many times in one of these. I mean, the Republican Party now stands for Peeping Thomas. That's right. And Peeping Paxton, sticking their heads in your bedroom and telling you, well, you're not in the missionary position. And, oh, you didn't copulate in the right place. And again, if anybody thinks they're just going to use this against gay couples, yeah, I was trying to come up with a really funny line there and I failed. So we'll just go on from there. What they're going to do is they're going to use it against black families who are having some sex that is not for procreation because they know that 90% of black families vote Democratic. They're going to use it against political enemies. Oh, look, Democratic Senator such and such got a BJ. Throw him in prison. That is the way they're going to do this. They're going to start the sex police, and they will go after gay sex to make their right-wing lunatic base happy. They're Christian fundamentalists, one of whom sits on the court, Amy Coney Barrett, who's part of a Christian cult. And then they'll also come after political enemies, and if you're a black American and other key Democratic groups, I'm sure too. That's where this is headed. And don't let them get out of this. Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, and now Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, even though they've probably both committed multiple crimes, including Clarence Thomas, who probably knew some of his wife's seditious activity in helping to plan a coup to overthrow the government of the United States and could end up in prison, made calls to get people to try to overturn the Electoral College, 29 of them, by the way, in Arizona, and texted with Mark Meadows like they were just old BFFs or old buddies sitting there on the tire swing together, looking at the sky and thinking about what life could be. They both are just knee-deep in corruption, and now they also want you to never be knee-deep in anything else. I'm sorry, folks. What they don't want is all of us to have the rights to have sex with who, how, and when we please. That's what they're coming for. Know this. Stop them. Vote against them.